Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. I think most of my followers and subscribers are from the UK, but I know there's plenty of people visiting the website from the USA, Canada, Europe, other parts of the world. So welcome if you're watching. If you're not watching live, then hopefully this video will be of some use to you. I'm going to be covering how to calculate and plot a course to steer, and also how to calculate and plot an estimated position. So there's going to be two pre-recorded parts to this which I will play, and if at any time through this you want to comment, then if you're watching on YouTube you can comment in the live chat section, and I will try and address your questions. And if you are watching after the event, then if you go to the website and you can comment on the blog post and ask any questions there, or in the forum. If you join as a member, as a premium member, you have access to all the forums on the website. So I am actually, I think, going to bring it forward so that all the forums are free to access for everybody that is subscribed, and free subscription for a month or two, just so that everybody gets to see what's available to them. And then after that I'll phase back in the premium membership side of things for the website. Everything remains free weekly on YouTube, but there will be additional premium content on the website. And if you subscribe to the website, you get some additional content on there for free as well. So that's the advertorial over with, I suppose. So first of all, let's have a look at course to steer. So we're going to start with course to steer. You'll see somebody looks remarkably like me in a minute, slightly scruffier and with a different t-shirt on, and he's going to talk you through course to steer. As I say, make a note of any questions and ask questions if you want to in the live chat, and then after that we'll go into estimated position and how that is different, and at the end, if there's anybody watching live on this inaugural live stream, then by all means put comments in the live stream, and I'll try and address it. In the meantime, here's the first of the two tutorials. So in this video we're going to look at how to plot a course to steer. Okay, so here we are. So first thing, we've got some assumptions. We're going to assume that wind is a force 5 from the north, that we've got 2 knots of tide running at 100 degrees true, and that our boat speed is going to be about 6 knots. So the first thing we do, we've got to have a start point. So we're going to plot a fix that we've taken. If you're not sure how to do that, you can look at some of our other videos. Plot the fix on the chart, that's where we are now. And then that's where we want to go, to that East Bramble mark. That's our desired destination. So we're going to get a straight edge and connect the two. Try and get into the habit of putting your Breton plotter the right way around so the boat faces the direction of travel. And connect the two from where you are to where you're going, and put the line through that mark. There's a reason for that, which we'll go into in a minute. Okay. And then we're going to mark that. That's our desired ground track. So we're going to put 2 arrows there. That's what we would desire as our ground track. So we've got here our assumptions. Now, because of the chart scale, we're going to find it difficult to plot an entire hour of 6 knots. It's going to be 6 miles. Even half an hour is going to be 3 miles, isn't it? We're going to cover, in half an hour, we'd cover 3 miles if we're doing 6 knots, 3 nautical miles. So that's 3. If we just plot 3 miles here, you can see, well, we're going for lunch, aren't we? We're aground somewhere. So what we could do is, as long as the triangle is the same scale on both sides, it doesn't matter. So let's make it a quarter hour. So a quarter of 6 is 1.5. 1.5, yep, that would fit nicely on the chart. Almost exactly take us to where we want to go, in fact. So let's just do a little calculation. Our boat speed is 6 knots. That's our estimated boat speed from experience. given the speed, given the winds and the point of sail. And so if in 1 hour, travelling at 6 knots, we know we would cover 6 nautical miles. Okay. So in a quarter hour, we're going to do a quarter of that distance, which is 1.5 nautical miles. So let's just write that down so we've got all our workings nice and clear. I can clearly talk faster than I can write. Okay, now we've got tide. So this is where it's important to use the same scale. So we know that tide is running at 2 knots. So in an hour, if you were not sailing, you would drift on the tide 2 nautical miles at a direction of 100 degrees true. We know that from our tide tables and working out tide in that location. So for a quarter of an hour, that same tidal vector is going to be a quarter of 2 miles. Okay, so that's half a mile. So we're using a quarter of our boat speed, so a quarter of 6, 1.5 nautical miles, and a quarter of our tidal flow, which is 2 knots, so a quarter of 2 is half a nautical mile. Okay, so as long as you apply the same ratio to each, then it won't matter. Your triangle will be the same shape, just smaller or bigger. Make sure now that you have the boat pointing the direction of travel. Set 100 on 0. Line up the compass rose on your Breton plotter with the north-south lines on your chart, lines of latitude. Correction, longitude. And then what we're going to do is draw in that line. So that's at 100 degrees true. And we're drawing quite a long line. Okay, now we've got to plot, haven't we, how much of that vector. That we know part of the vector was 100 degrees true. And it was half a mile in 15 minutes. So let's get half a mile off our scale. And then we'll just cross this line. So that is our vector there. That's half a mile, a quarter of an hour of tidal effect. And we can rub out the rest of the line now. Now our boat speed was 6 knots. And we're doing it for a quarter of an hour. So that's 1.5 nautical miles, isn't it? So what we now need to do is get 1.5 nautical miles off our chart, off our latitude chart scale. Put that onto the end of the tide, because that's where we'd be after a quarter of an hour if we weren't going anywhere. Now we're going to add the boat vector, the boat speed vector. And you can see where we've crossed the line, and this is important, we've crossed the line there that went through our destination. And the reason we've done this, don't connect to your destination, that's a rookie error, and defeats the object of what we're doing. You connect to where you've crossed the line, 1.5 knots boat speed, or 1.5 nautical miles vector. Okay, so that is our course to steer. But we haven't allowed yet for leeway. So if we were to steer that course from our starting point, our heading would be higher than our course, wouldn't it? But we would get to East Bramble Mark. And we'd actually get there before 15 minutes. As you can see, we would be past it. So let's just measure that then. So we're going to put the Breton plotter on, line up our compass rose on the plotter with north, and read off at 0 to see what our course to steer calculation has resulted in. 056 true. But that's before leeway. So that's our tidal vector. That's our wind. And wind is going to push us slightly sideways, isn't it? We're going to slip sideways because of leeway. So we've got to basically allow for that leeway by steering a little bit closer to the wind. And if we do that, we should end up exactly where we want to go. Now, you'll do this through knowing the boat. If we said 10 degrees of leeway if you're on a beat, so 10 degrees of leeway, you'd have to steer 10 degrees closer to the wind in order to give your final course to steer after allowing for tide. So 056 true, an extra 10 degrees to wind, so that's minus 10 degrees on the compass rose, and that would give us 046 true course to steer. So starting from our starting point, steering at 046 true, we should get to East Bramble, and we should get there before 15 minutes because we're going to be past it in 15 minutes. So probably about 12 minutes we should be at East Bramble. So hopefully you now know how to plot a course to steer. So just remember, what you're trying to achieve is the course that you need to steer in order to get to a defined point, and that's allowing for an estimated boat speed through the water, a calculated tidal flow at that time, and then a calculated or estimated leeway, which comes from knowing your boat and knowing your point of sail and how much leeway you're likely to get on a particular point of sail. So if you're beating to windward with a lot of canvas up, you're going to be heeled over more and likely in most scenarios to be creating more leeway, sliding across the water more. If you're going downwind with a spinnaker up, well, you'll probably get hardly any leeway at all. So that is something that you get with experience. Leeway is always applied to the water track. That's the course to steer you've calculated after you've done everything else. So apply leeway at the end. And remember, if the wind is on your port side, then you're going to be deducting an amount of leeway. So if it's 10 degrees of leeway and you're at 0.56, it's going to be 0.46. If the wind's on your starboard side, then you're going to be adding on leeway. So it'll be 0.56 to 0.66. Okay, and if you think about it, if you stand in the middle of a compass rose, that will make sense. If the wind's on your port side, you need to go closer to the wind, then you're going to be taking numbers off on the compass rose. And if the wind's on your starboard side, you need to be going towards the wind again to allow for the leeway. And of course the numbers go up in a clockwise direction, so you need to be adding the leeway. So if you think about it logically, that makes sense. I hope that's answered your questions on course to steer, but if it hasn't and you've still got questions, you can go to freesailingtutorials.com, subscribe, and as a free member you can access some of our forums, and for £5 a month you can access all of our forums and ask us questions. We also do one-to-one online tutorials and also own boat tuition. So do pay us a visit at Free Sailing Tutorials. Thanks a lot. Okay, so that was course to steer. So that video is on the websites and also on YouTube, so you can go back to that, watch it again if you want to. As I say, in the forums, if you're a member, or for a short period of time, as long as you're subscribed for free, you can ask specific questions in the forums. If you want to do a one-to-one Zoom tutorial with me on specific topics, then that's also available. Just go to the website and have a look at booking times, etc. So course to steer. Now, course to steer is obviously something you're doing at the beginning before you leave a point in order to know what bearing or what heading you need, so that when you if you steer that heading for a period of time, you know you'll get to approximately where you expect it to get to. Now, an estimated position is historic in that what you're doing is you're working out where you should be after a period of time sailing at a heading. You need to know the tidal vector for both, and you need to estimate leeway for both. But how you apply them is different historically than it is when you're looking at something and projecting ahead. Now there is a third thing, which is a projected estimated position. So that's where you do an estimated position, but you do it on the assumption of things you're about to do, and then you can project an estimated position, but more importantly you can project a course over ground, a ground track. And that's useful if you want to make sure you're going to avoid any obstacles, shallows, or rocks or wrecks or anything like that. So you can project your estimated position in a period of time, and also you can project your approximate ground track, and then you can use that to make sure that your heading is not going to get you into trouble on the entry, for example, into an estuary or something like that. You can also use GPS to check as you go, and so whilst it's a good idea to actually plot your course to steer, you might decide halfway through maybe a 4-hour leg of a particular route, you might decide halfway through or a quarter of the way through to check your GPS course, your location, your fix, and check whether or not that's where you expect it to be, allowing for a projected estimated position for an hour. Now we're going to go into estimated position now, so we've done course to steer. Now we're going to do estimated position, and at the end of it, as I say, if you've got any questions, then do please put them in the chat, and I'll try and address them. Hello, in this video we're going to look at how to calculate and plot an estimated position. Okay, so let's first of all look at assumptions that we're making. We're looking at a boat speed of 6 knots. Our heading, our boat heading, compass heading, has been adjusted already to 041 true. Okay, so if you want to know how to adjust compass to true, you look at our video on that. Wind speed, we're saying force 5 from the north. Our assumed leeway, we're going to say it's to 10 degrees of leeway because we're hard on the wind. It could be more than that, depends on the boat. It could be 30 degrees, but we'll say 10 degrees for our boat. And we're going to start with a fix on the chart. So if you're not sure how to do a fix, look at our video on that too. So we're starting from there, and because of the scale of the chart, we're going to quarter down our 1 hour vectors. So 6 knots boat speed will be 1.5 knots of nautical miles of vector, etc. Same with the tide. So if we assume we've got a heading of 041 and we've got wind giving us leeway of say 10 degrees. So we're going to put the leeway on at the beginning this time. So 051 is going to be our water track. So we line up our compass rose on the Breton plotter with the meridian line, and then we draw a line from our previous fix, like so. And then that is our boat vector. We've just got to put in the right amount now of distance travelled over a quarter of an hour. So we put one line on it to show that it's our water track, one arrow, sorry, to show that it's our water track. And then we're going to have 1.5 nautical miles is the distance we will have travelled in a quarter of an hour at 6 knots. So we plot that onto our water track. Like so. So that's our boat vector. That's distance travelled over 15 minutes on a course which is allowing for leeway. So the next thing we're going to do is have a look at putting our tide in. So it was a tide running to 100 degrees true. We line up north again on our Breton plotter with the meridian line, and we put it on the end of the boat vector. That's because this is historic. We're finding an estimated position, whereas when we're doing a course to steer, we put it on at the beginning because that is a prediction. Okay, so we've drawn a line in there, that's 100 degrees true, and we're going to put 3 arrows on that because that is a tidal vector. Distance now. Quarter of 2 knots for quarter of an hour is going to be half a knot, or half a nautical mile travelled. So we're going to just get that at 0.5 nautical miles, and we're going to cross that over the line. That's our tidal vector now done. Okay, so we can rub away the remaining bit of line just to keep ourselves tidy. And that basically is our estimated position. So we put a triangle around the end of that line, like so, and that's our EP. So I'll just write EP there, but the triangle tells us that. And we could put a time by that. If we were navigating, we'd put a time by it so we knew that that's where we estimated we would be at that time. Now if we attach now the two ends of this from our fix to our EP, that is our ground track. That's how the boat moved over the seabed during that 15-minute period. That was our initial heading, and we slid sideways for leeway, so we allowed for that when we plotted our water track, which was 10 degrees more. Tide had an effect on us, which gave us a ground track as such. Okay, so we would be pointing on a heading, and then we would be sort of sliding and being pushed by the tide along that line. Okay, so we can see there that we've got a ground track. That's what our vessel will have travelled over the seabed on that line. Now, if we wanted to, we could project that estimated position. So we could have done this at the beginning, and that would give us a projected estimated position, and we could look at the ground track to see whether or not the ground track takes us over any rocks or shallows. So we would know exactly the same, we're just looking at the ground track. But usually an estimated position is going to be historic. It's going to be where do we think we are now, 15 minutes after we left that fix. And we could check that estimated position against depths and against marks to see that we were roughly in the right place. Obviously in closed waters like this, you're probably going to be piloting to a large extent anyway. But this illustrates how to calculate and plot an estimated position. So just to go over this, that would be our ground track. That's what we're travelling over. Our heading is our compass heading, allowed for true. Our water track is allowing for leeway, and then estimated position is the end of those vectors being applied. So there we are. We've looked at how to calculate and plot an estimated position. So the difference between a course to steer and an estimated position is basically that an estimated position is largely looking back at what we've done and where we are now, whereas a course to steer is looking at where we are now and what we must steer to get to where we want to go. For that reason, we apply leeway at the end and apply it to the water track at the end for a course to steer, whereas an estimated position, we apply leeway at the beginning. So be aware of that. The other thing that we do is we apply tide at the beginning for a course to steer because we're looking into the future, and we apply it at the end of our boat vector for an estimated position. So I hope that is clear, and see you again soon. Okay, so that is course to steer and estimated position. Both videos are available on the YouTube channel, Free Sailing Tutorials, and also on freesailingtutorials.com. You can comment on our forums if you access our forums, and ask questions if you're not sure, and I'm more than happy to try and answer those questions for you. If you want to do one-to-one Zoom tutorials, then that can be done too. I'm just getting set up really in terms of what we can offer. So this, for example, this is live. I'm hoping that you can hear me okay, and basically I could do stuff live here and talk you through it. I'm just trying to work really on what we can do with the rudimentary sort of technical stuff that we've got here. So if you've got any questions or if you've got any feedback, I'd really appreciate it if you do watch these videos and you've got some feedback on how we could change the format, improve the format, or any specific topics you'd like us to address. I am busy at the moment trying to complete the first of the Udemy micro courses. The first one will be on passage and pilotage planning, and once that's complete, then those will be available for purchase. And if you order now on the website, you get a 40% discount as and when they become available. No money up front, just as and when available. And because it's on Udemy, which was something I decided to do, it does mean that there's a 100% money back guarantee if you're not happy with the quality and the format of the course when you paid for it. So I hope that's been of some use. This was the first. We seem to be live at least, and we have had a handful of people watching. So thank you for taking the time to visit. If you see this afterwards, after the recording, please do comment if you've got any comments you'd like to make, or any positive or constructive criticism. It's always appreciated. And obviously, as with all YouTube videos, if you could like this, it helps with the algorithm, so I really appreciate that. Okay, as I say, last thing really, if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please consider doing so if you think it might be of interest. Free videos every Friday. We post videos and blog posts on freesailingtutorials.com. You can subscribe for free and get free content there, and we are also generating some premium content over the course of the next few months, which will also be available for a small monthly fee of £4.95 for a member. So thanks again for joining, and really hope that this has been of some use to you, and hope to speak to you again soon. Next first Monday of September will be our next planned tutorial. Not sure yet what the topics will be, but I will let you know close to the time. Thanks a lot.